Yeah.
And I was wondering, because I'm not familiar with the college.
Yeah, how was it?
It was good. It was crowded.
I heard. People love a good, pardon me, a good Yisker.
Yeah, we had good.
I like a good Yisker too.
Kind of an oxymoron, right? Good Yisker.
A good Yisker, yeah. Powerful Yisker.
Yeah, that's true. So at 7 o'clock, it's the Pac-12 championship, Arizona and Oregon. We're Pac-12. In Scottsdale, Giant Stadium.
Oh, it's oh.
Not far off.
Now it slows down a little bit for you guys.
What's that?
It slows down a little bit for the rabbis.
After this?
After this.
After this, it slows down a little for us. I agree.
After the Clickville's event and everything else.
Clickville event, Shavuot. Oh, hi.
Shavuot.
Hey, kiddo. You're gonna hang out? Okay.
The stereotype, Rabbi.
Why don't you come sit over here, sweetie? You're usually happiest over here.
Oh, yeah, cool shirt. You're welcome. We have a minion. 2 more coming this way. Great. Always be worried, I'm sure. Side or Victor?
Oh, yeah, we were just talking about that. That's why baseball's a great game, because in any one game, you can't predict the outcome. Long season, maybe, but one game.
Oh, yeah.
What?
No. Right. Right?
Yep.
Tourist section?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It was Friday afternoon, that's why. Some Chag, we don't have an afternoon.
Hog and Shabbat, yep. Yeah, Hog afternoon alone, we don't read for
Right.
it, but yeah.
I remember yesterday, Rabbi Micah was confused about that, so I told him.
Yeah.
Today.
Movie night,
Yes,
very
yes.
watching.
Pleasure.
Great. Alright. Joey, will you lift Torah today, please?
Okay.
Awesome. Great. Will you wrap Torah? I just asked Joey to lift, so wrapping would be great. Great, fantastic. I'll hand out all you in a little bit. Just wait and see who else is. Oh, they're reconnecting us to Zoom, I guess. Now,
Right, yeah. So more balance. Right.
It's great to see.
Shalom, Chag Sameach.
Okay, good afternoon. Good to see everybody. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. We are doing Mincha l'Shabbat. Yom Tov. We're doing Mincha that is for both Shabbat and Yom Tov because today is both Shabbat and also Shavuot. We're reaching the end of Shavuot. We're on page 214 in Lev Shalem. If you're using one of the other Sudarim, you can find the service on page 226 in the newer of the two Sim Shalom prayer books and 558 in the older. But right now in the red Lev Shalem in front of you, if you're here in Pelch Hall, we're on page 214. Asher yishli beitecha od yelelucha sed Hashem shekacha lo Hashem shadonai Eloka tzilat v'David. Tehillat Adonai yidaber pi v'yirech kol basar shem kodesh le'olam va'ed v'anachnu nevarech yam yetav yad olam hallelujah. Yitakadosh Shifti Lot Yisrael, Vikar Zel Zev Yamar, Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech La'aretz Kevodo, V'tisayini Ruach V'shmach Harai Korash Katohu, Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimekomod, Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed. Yiftechu b'chayidei shemecha, ki lo azavta dorshach Adonai, Adonai chavetz leman tiko, yagdil Torah v'yadir, yitkatav yikatash me'rava, v'yamad yivrach yirtei, v'yamlich b'chotei, v'chayichon, v'yomeichon, v'chayidecho beit Yisrael, v'akalai v'zman kariv, v'yimru amen, yishmi rabba mevarach, le'elam u'me'ayai, yivarach v'yishtabach, Vipar Vishon Vitnase, Vitatar Vitale Vitalal, Shemedi Kudisha, Viri, Humela Min Kober Kata Vishirata, Jishpakata Nekmata, Damiram Yama, Vimru, Amen. Manita Vilatin, Lechadonai, Hetraton, and the Himro Costacha, Nina weren't already.
We're covered already?
Yeah, all
Okay.
covered. We are going to read from Parshat Naso. Let's turn these around a little. And turn this around a little.
On page 791.
So we're on page 791 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. If you're following along in any other Hebrew Bible of some kind, you can find us at chapter 4 of the book of Numbers, Bamidbar. We're at verse 21. We're going to end our reading at verse 33. We are reading from the beginning of Parshat Naso, which is quite the trip back because we've been traveling all over the Chumash for the last couple of days. We've been traveling all the way back to Exodus, to Sinai, and then we went all the way to Devarim to learn all about the Chag and how we should be smechim, we should be happy on our holidays. We're commanded to be so, and now we're going back to Naso, to a regularly scheduled reading. Grant, can I give you the first aliyah? Awesome. I'm gonna steal somebody's. Can I borrow this? Okay, great. Okay.
Baruch ben Chaim v'Chana.
Okay, I'll get there in a second. V'tigal levitirei malchuto aleinu bizman karov. V'yichav l'tzotenu fleitat amo beit Yisrael. L'cheinu chesed rachamim v'ratzonu mar amen kohavu godel. L'Eloheinu tnu chavod laTorah yamod Baruch ben
Ben Chaim v'Chana.
Chaim v'Chana l'aliyah rishona Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. V'tamad v'yimanai lechem chayim chulechem hayom.
Baruch et Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe lemor nasa et rosh b'nei Gershon gavhem beit avotam lemishpatam iben 30 שנה ומעלה עד 150 שנה תפקוד אותם כל הבא לצבאות צבא לעבוד עבודה ביום מועד זאת עבודת משפחות הגרשוני לעבוד ולמסע.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chai olam natah b'tuchenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Can I give you an aliyah? Okay, Bob, can I give you an aliyah? Yeah, you. Yamad.
Yeah.
What's your Hebrew name, Bob?
Reuben,
Reuben. Ben.
Zara,
It's your parents' names.
Zara,
Zarav.
and Hirsha.
Hershav. Laliyah Hashniha. Okay, you can go to that side and hear the blessings if we need. Let's hand in the book.
It's a holy object.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaBarach. Baruch Adonai HaBarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. ונשאו את יריות המשכן ואת אוהל מועד מכסהו מכסה התחת אשר עליו מלמעלה ואת מסך פתח ומועד ואת כלי החצר ואת מסך פתח שער החצר אשר על המשכן ועל המזבח סביב ואת מטריהם ואת כל כלי עבודתם ואת כל אשר יעשה להם ועבדו על פי ארון עבדיו תהיה כל עבודת בני הגרשוני לכל מסעם ולכל עבודתם וקראתם עליהם במשמרת את כל מסעם זאת עבודת משפחות בני הגרשוני ביום המועד משמרתם ביד איתמר בן אהרון הכהן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam b'ta b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yamod Avimori, Ephraim David Ben Yoav Sarah, Aliyah Hashlishit. The third Aliyah is chapter 4, verse 29. We're on page 792. You can use the thing to touch and kiss. Yeah, there you go. She's here.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Anavarach Le'olam Vahim.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. B'nei merari le'mishkotam le'beit avotam tifkarotam. מבין 30 שנה במעל ו50 שנה תפקדם כל הבת לצבא לעבוד את עבודת המועד וזאת בשמרת מסם לכל עבודתם ביום מועד כאשר המשכן ורחב עמודיו עד עיניו עמודי החצר סביב עדניהם יתירותם ומיתריהם לכל כליהם ולכל עבודתם ושמות יפקדו את כלי משמרת מסם זאת עבודת משפחות בני מררי וכל עבודתם ביום מועד ביד איתמר בן אהרון הכהן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Shkoyach Yamod Hamagbiah Yamod Hagolel. Please rise for the lifting and wrapping of the Sefer Torah. Mark, can we borrow your chair, please? Okay, get the chair set up for Joey. Okay, please rise. Bezot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Alpi Adonai B'yad Moshe Eitz Chaim V'ila Machazikim Ba V'tomechel Me'ushar Eitz Chaim V'ila Machazikim Ba V'tomechel Me'ushar Dirafecha Darkei Noam V'chol Nitivotei Shalom Dirafecha Darkei Noam V'chol Nitivotei Shalom. It's fine, Maria. It's
Oh, yeah, I thought the other way. Yeah. Here you go. Let's see.
Do we do any El Males today? No, because it's Chag. So I should just give this back to you.
to me. Well, thanks for opening that. Perfect. Hallelujah, Shema Tomna, Hikinis Kav Shemo Levado, Dollars for Shemayim, Verim Karen Leamo, Tila the Kochasitav, Leave Nisr Lam Kurovo, Hallelujah, Lidavi, Mismore, Lidavi, Mismore, Letternairs. Page 221. Yisavra Kami Tadonai.
Yeah, it might be on the wrong polls.
It's over here still.
Oh,
Uvnucho yom har shivad renai rivavot al fei Yisrael k'mor. It's claim hilam akazikim ba v'tomechem ehushar derechecha derechei noham v'chol netivoteh shalom hashivinu Adonai lecha v'nashu v'chadish ameinu kekedem. Before we go into the Amidah, I just have to remark, this is the first time I've gotten to pray in here in a very long time with the windows exposed. Very exciting. Oh, thank you, Alan. The windows were broken for a while in here and they've been repaired, and windows make a difference. It's very, very nice. So thank you to the people who work so hard to get those fixed. We are currently on page 222. I'll give some instructions about the Amidah in just a moment. יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, ויעמד יברח, ירטה וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, וגלה בזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן, ישמר רבה ברח לעולם ולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושרתה, תשוש וחתה ונקמתה דמירה מימה, ויאמרו אמן. There is no Amidah for Shabbat that has inclusions for festivals, but there is a festival Amidah with inclusions for Shabbat, and that's the one that we do. Right now, we turn to page 306 in Lev Shalom for a private whispered Amidah. If you're in a different Siddur, you'll be on page 242 or 586. Again, we turn to 306 for a whispered private Amidah. If you're still praying your own private whispered Amidah, please continue at your own pace. The repetition begins on page 306. When you reach the Kedusha, at the end with the blessing Ha'el HaKadosh, you can be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Eloi Avraham Eloi Yitzchak Eloi Yaakov Eloi Sarah Eloi Rivka Eloi Rachel Eloi Leah Hayel HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah Elyon Gomel Chasadim Toviv U'Genei HaKol V'zocher Chastei Havot U'Mithiku Eliv Nivnei Amnon Shemo Yahava Melech Ozer Fokeinu Mashiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Uvokei Tzara atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechli Metim atah Rav Theoshia B'chol Kachayim B'chesed B'chei Metim Merachamim Rabim Samech Novelim V'Rofecholim Matira Surim Chayim Emunatov Tishnei Afar Mi Chamocha Bal Gevorot Umida Melach Melech V'Mitu Chayei Matzmiach Yeshua V'Neman Atah Lechayot Metim Baruch atah Adonai V'Chayei Metim Nikadesh Shimcha Ba'olam Kashem Shemachti Shemoto B'Shmi Marom Kakatu B'Yad Miyecha V'Karazel Zev Yamar Kadosh, 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 Adonai, Tzvah Melech La'aretz, Kevod Olam Atam Baruch Yomeru. Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimei Komov, K'divrei Kodesh Kotu Leimor. Och Adonai Le'olam, Elohai Zion Litor V'Ador, Hallelujah. Litor V'Ador Nagigod Lecha. ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים אהבת אותנו ורצית בנו ורוממתנו מכל הלשונות וקידשתנו במצוותיך וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך ושמך הגדול והקדוש עלינו קראת ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה שבתות למנוחה ומועדים לשמחה חגים וזמנים לששון את יום השבת הזה ואת יום חג השבועות הזה זמן מתן תורתנו באהבה מקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו יעלה ויבוא ויגע ויראה וירצה וישמע ויבקר ויזכר זיכרוננו ופיקדוננו וזיכרון אבותינו וזיכרון משיח בן דוד עבדך זיכרון ירושלים עיר קודשך זיכרון כל מלך בית ישראל לפניך לפלטה לטובה לחינוך חסד ורחמים לחיים ושלום ביום חג השבועות הזה זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה ופוקדנו בו לברכה והושיענו בו לחיים ובדבר ישועה ורחמים וחוס וחונן ורחם עלינו והושיענו כי לך עינינו כי מלך וחנון ורחום אתה ועשיינו אדוני אלוהינו ברכת מותך לחיים ושלום לשמחה וששון כאשר רצית ואמרת לברכנו אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רצי ונוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותנחלקנו בתורתך סבינו מטובך ושמחנו ישועתך וטהר ליבנו לבדך באמת ולכן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון ושמחה וששון שבת ומועדי קודשך ישמחו בך ישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת וישראל והזמנים נצא אדוני אלוהינו במלכה ישראל ותפילתם ושבט אבותיו לפיר ביתך ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזיני בשוחד ציון ורחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון מודים אנחנו לך שתעבוד נדלת התור כי לא חלו רחמך ורחם כי לא תמוך שדיך מעולם קיווינו לך ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד וכל החיים מתוך הסלע יעללו את שמך באמת על ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני התור שמך ולך נאה להודות
Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Amachamil Kol Yishaviti V'Elzasim Le'olam Ki Ata U'Melech Adon L'Chol Shalom B'Tov B'Einecha L'Varech Et Amcha Yisrael V'Cholei Tuchol Shabi Shlomecha Baruch Ata Adonai Hamarech Et Amo Yisrael B'Shalom. We turn back to page 230 in Lev Shalem. In the other Siddurim, it's 247 or 596. Yikadav, Yikadash Mirabah, Yamadi Raker, Devim Lik, Makutev, Kayakon, Mekon, Kayako, Beit Israel, Bagalav, Isman Kari, Vimru Amen, Yehishmei, Rabah Mevarach, Me'al Tamil, Me'al Maya, Yibarach, Vishav, Yidbarit, Ram, Vinasei, Vita Dar, Vita Le, Vita Lash, Medikudish, Aberi, Hulele, Min Kober, Katav, Shirat, Dush, Bekat, Tavenechmata, Tamira, Be'al Mavim, Ruamin, Tikabat, Salodon, Odon, Kol Yisrael, Kenamon, Ishmaya, Vim, Ruamin, Ishlam, Rabbi, Shamay, Vachim, Aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, Vim, Ruamin, Ose Shalom, Ravu, Yes, Shalom, Aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, Vim, Ruamin. We rise for Aleinu, Aleinu, Lishabei, Achla, Jonah, Kol, take a look at this one. Kakatu Torah Kadunai Loch Lamvaid. Vine Marve Yadunai Lamelko Haaretz Bayomu. Yadunai Echad. Ushmo Echad. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 232, and the other Siddurim 249 or 600. Yit Gadal, Vit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma Divra Kirute, V'yamlich Malchute. V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayeh Dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala V'zman Kari V'imru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah B'varach Le'olam Olamei Omaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh. V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha B'richu. Le'ela Minkol Birchata V'shirata. Tush B'chata V'nechamata. Damiram Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya. V'chayim Aleinu Ve'okol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imramav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'okol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Yishar Koach to Mark for reading Torah today, and to everybody else who participated in the service. We're going to learn together in about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how long it takes for us to nourish ourselves. Grab for yourself something to eat or otherwise nourish yourself, and we will resume in just a minute or 15.
I'm trying so hard to avoid that camera and it keeps following me tonight. Like I sat down over there because usually it's not over there. And then I was on the camera. And then I moved over there. And then it was
Very important principle that you may or may not be familiar with.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
It's even more, no, even more important than that. It's not beneath all the languages. It's what's a desire to you, like it's not an outcome of what's desires to be beneficial to you. And so we joke about that in like there was this light on a walk home. That's one of those garage lights. You can't avoid it. Like there's no way to avoid it. And it always turns on when we go by. We're like, well, we weren't relying on it. We weren't looking at it. We're looking at this side of the street. There's no avoiding it, right? You're always checking it. Such Shabbos. Me new? You're new. You're new. Yeah. Welcome. What's your name? Shani?
Yeah, my mom. I'm from Orange County here.
Welcome.
Thank you. I saw your daughter.
That's my daughter.
Oh my God. Baby, you're back, right, baby?
She is almost 8. And he's 4.5. So he's 5. He's home. He's home. Yeah. So those are my two.
Yeah, for a birthday.
No, I wish. Yeah, no, I have no plans for another. For us, it's just
That's enough.
yeah, it's enough for us. So,
Alright,
yeah,
alright.
you know, but
They're
there's
not familiar with that.
they're dangerous.
Yeah, my daughter has to children.
Where are they? Where are they?
They are very close here, about 15-minute walking. And today I didn't see them, I'm very, very sad.
Soon.
Good, I go tomorrow. I go tomorrow to see your mom. Thank you. My mom had accident. Fall down there. Yeah.
Longest time he was on Zoom a lot. The rabbi from Tucson, his son died. Rabbi Isaac. Yeah, I'm saying he was concerned, but he went to
I love your onion. It's delicious, my love.
Right before they get in, you see those bingo.
Almost an hour. I know, we're all sitting here saying.
They were doing this by bingo. That's right. Because I can put real money and not just for fun.
You got the shop tone, she sang one with her mother. Those of us that attended.
Here,
We're the privileged.
The treat on the trail.
Yeah,
She got
street on the
bold.
trail.
She got really bold. She never, I usually don't like to say, we should go in. When we're out there in the nature.
you go to Laguna Bay?
The other way.
This is true. The microphone is for, I don't know, right? You're like, it literally is, yeah, you're like, that's all right. The only other person who is as confident in doing a microphone and really would take a microphone too is Kesha. Kesha is also confident in a microphone and a drum, and you can hear her, yeah. Under the weather. Yeah, I think, not Kesha, but Laura. She's really under the weather before Shabbat, like, when, I was saying something to Marty about this too, like, when I was a kid and I had a cold, it's cold, but like, it seems like kids sometimes get cold now and they're like, just like a fever and sick and
My brother's a pediatrician. He went to work in a van and broke his wife. Because he gets,
Oh, yes, yeah.
he's in Arizona where nobody got vaccinated.
Oh, that is definitely,
You know, and
definitely unlucky for him.
Yeah. Like, but he's like, dresses like a beekeeper, so you go to work, he still got it. Wow.
His brother is the animal or.
Yeah, he's the boy, he's the only boy on Tucson as well. See, my brother was like, he stopped dating oil for this, no one really. He's the only one.
No, sorry, we didn't use this, we used, but, we're until he's not working anymore, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. His father's a lawyer. His father, they grew up in Colombia. Father from Colombia.
You know, the only time I ever see my little brother do anything doctor, like a certain side date in library meeting. I never, you know,
Right, 'cause like, when would you see?
no, it's my brother, he lives in another state. I knew he went to medical school, I'd never seen him do anything. That was the
Right, but
first
you
time.
didn't want to.
First time.
It's so funny, like, I think, I was just talking about this with my brother's lawyer, and they were kind of like.
went to court, you would see it.
Of course it would, yeah, we're not going anywhere. Well, and maybe you haven't reached the stage where you just ask for ice cream.
Oh, we got
Trust me, it's the
no,
lawyer
no, we-
family.
We've gotten there, but we don't have to do lawyers.
You heard about all the labor.
Oh, okay.
You know, I told you.
What did you call? I said the water too cold.
Immediately.
Oh, I don't see that. I'm having a lot of this one.
Smart way of doing it, keeping a little ice in it, to cool down enough to enjoy it without burning yourself.
Well, our
The word
permit-
defense, we're not playing.
Well, we do defense also.
I'm listening to the podcast. And so, it's very true. About the history. I watched it. Really? Of course. And there's another one that I'm trying to put down. It's more.
Not so bright, but early.
Another one might have got taken in.
I mean,
Folks look at my mom's history.
Shocked I was, like, I was drive by one.
YouTube. History, you know, philosophy, into the.
You gotta go out and let it.
She's got like 150. I started with. The one on the history.
Right, like chocolate, real nice.
Oh, that's the story. I think it was very good.
It's just. That's what you call it, they trick people out.
They all know, I don't know. I didn't look there.
I was thinking about you.
There's
Well, you're that
somebody
desperate,
was
you're thinking
throwing
about
rocks on the street and then.
They're so bored,
But now,
they come
now
up.
it's her, so
In my mind.
now we can enjoy it.
I'm convinced more than
That's
ever.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, maybe.
Oh, you are? Or-
I know you're not.
Okay, you're gone.
That's too stupid.
Hey, bro.
Still 300.
No, I'm not too.
I haven't seen it in a very long time. Thank you.
Your brother can be
I'm very good to see Mexican.
Our people.
Good. Good, great language. Sandra's rice out, rice college out, is he done? Is he here?
He's
Mr. Messer?
done.
Oh, no.
He's done forever,
Oh.
until he decides to go to grad school. Oh, thank you, yeah, I didn't go walk. So, get my steps in. How are you doing? That's why it is.
Just turned 62.
Oh, you went on that too.
Okay, we are going to get started learning.
Make an exception.
Yeah, thank you. There's a name for that called layering up.
This one is don't read ahead.
They need to be enlightened by what you study.
We'll see. We'll see about that. The cheesecake is 100% gone. It was gone immediately. Yeah, after the first time we put it out. Okay, we're going to begin learning. I know we're all very excited to be here and discuss cheesecake, but we're going to start our Sudash Lishit learning. Okay, so we are learning about Parshat Naso, which, as I mentioned, we've been getting into over the course of the past week. Mark was joking he's been reading it for a long time, because it's true. We've been reading it for a whole week as we sort of make our way through stalling. Sometimes when we get to a season of Chagim, a season of holidays that fall on Shabbat, then we kind of wind up stalling the Parsha cycle, because we're not reading the Parsha on Shabbat, which means that even though we read that Parsha in the Shabbat afternoon and in the weekday cycle in the mornings, we're not reading it on Shabbat mornings. We're getting a little sneak preview, but we're not getting the whole thing. So I am pulling out a piece from later in Naso, a piece that we neither read on weekday mornings, nor will we read in the triennial cycle, the first third that's pulled out for those of us who will read, who will hear this on Shabbat morning, somewhere where we're only reading the first third. It's from the 6th chapter of the book of Numbers, when we are reading about the Nazir. Like I said to a couple of you as I was passing this out, this is more fun if you don't read ahead, okay? So let's see if we can take this one piece at a time. So Numbers 6:2. Daber el bnei Yisrael, va'amarta alehem, speak to the children of Israel, saying to them, Ish o isha, a man or a woman. So this is going to be a law or a principle that applies to somebody of either gender. Ki yafli, who yafli, I'm not going to translate that for now. Lindor neder, to vow a vow, or if I were translating as Everett Fox, to vow, yes, vow, to be a Nazir, Lindor neder Nazir, which is a Nazarite's vow. It is a word unto itself. Nazir is a distinctive category of person, rather it is a category of being. It is a category one can set themselves apart to be. So one can be a Nazir. One can be a person in a category of Nazir. It is a status, and it is also the way that one is referred to when in that status. Lehazir ladonai. Really, it's saying, that is to say, lehazir, to set oneself apart from, as in to set oneself apart from society, from stuff, from life, from a blank, kind of, it's not filled in there. To set oneself apart, ladonai, for the sake of God. We're only really going to pick apart one little tiny piece of this verse for a second, okay? Rebbe Nachman of Bretzlav has a commentary on this verse that I want us to linger on a little bit that I never thought about before. Now, a Nazarite, before we get into this, a Nazarite, are we familiar with this idea of a Nazir? You had nods, the idea of a Nazir.
A Nazir, we're going to discuss, is an ascetic person. It's somebody who chooses to set themselves apart because even though, generally speaking, the Jewish people is not a self-restrictive people, this is a status where one takes upon themselves additional restrictions such that it sets themselves apart from the rest of people among the Jewish people in order to be set aside for God in this regard. And the verb that's used in this verse is curious for some people. It's curious for Rabbi Nachman of Bretzlav, who's one of our Hasidic masters. Some of us know some other teachings of Rabbi Nachman. From the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, from Likutei Moharan, we find the following. We're not going to dig too deeply into it because it's thick stuff, but I really like it. V'tikuno shel hafla'a hazot. Okay, what's a tikkun? You just went to one, right? Some of you. A study session, yeah. So we call that a tikkun leil shavuot. Why do we call a tikkun, by the way? It's one of the reasons I chose this, because I think it's a funny thing that we call it a tikkun. Because it's what? What do we do on leil shavuot? We study, but what are we doing with ourselves studying? We sort of...
It's not like Chavruta, we're in a big group.
It's not chavruta, we're in a big group, but it could be chavruta. Some people just stay up all night at home. That's so much more boring though, right, Brant? We'd rather do it in a group. That's why we do it here. Right, tikkun litakein, the verb litakein from which this comes means to fix. And the reason why I say fix and not repair is because fix in English also has the connotation of setting, as in if I'm going to fix something with glue or affix something with glue, I can set that thing. I can set it in that and it's going to fix it, right? It will be fixed in cement. It'll be fixed in glue, right? So tikkun can be a fix. It can be, I'm affixed in prayer all evening. So a tikkun leil shavuot is really that connotation. I am affixed in that. It's not necessarily for repair. That's not the connotation being used. However, that is the connotation that's being used here in this teaching from Rabbi Nachman. The tikkuno shel hafla'a hazot. What's a hafla'a? What's a pele, which is in the center of that? A wonder. Boy, people really knew that one. I thought you were going to say a candy bar because pele is like a very popular candy bar in Israel. So, or a miku pellet, right? Or miku fellet, if you're doing the right grammar, miku pellet or a pele, like lots of candy bars are named Wonder, like Wonder chocolate or whatever. So tikuno shel hafla'a hazot, the repair or the fix of this wonder. What wonder is he referring to in this verse? What's the wonder? The Nazir, this person who's taking on the status of Nazir. What is it? It's going to be a tikkun of some kind. It's going to be a repair of some kind. Hainu shel silukan shel chachamim. As in the passing of the sages, tikkuno, its fix, he's just re-emphasizing this word, hafla'a shel neder. It is the wonder of the vow, as in the vow itself. Bivchinat, as in from this source. Ki yafli lindor neder. This is the verse that we just shared. Ki al yedei ha-neder, for by the hands of this vow, meaning by means of this vow, hu ole lashorish shehachachamim mushrashim sham. By means of this vow, he goes up to the root of the source in which the sages themselves are rooted, which he calls hainu b'chinat pliyot chokhmah, that there's a wondrousness to wisdom. Skip the source that's in parentheses. V'yodea umakir ma'alot chachamim. So he, meaning the person who takes on the Nazirite vow, Makir, he comes to know the heights of the sages, or as this person translates it, the virtues of the sages, but ma'alot are like the levels, the heights of. The al yedei zeh, and by means of this, hushav uma'amin bahem, he comes back and he returns to having faith in them. So it's a tikkun, it is a return, it is a wondrous, it is actually a miraculous, pele, return, and it's a fix to what? What is it repairing? Hushav ma'amin bahem. So what happened before? Perhaps they were having trouble believing in them. Why might one take on a Nazirite vow according to, we're trying to get his read, not our read. What is the read of Rabbi Nachman? If you lack faith, you might
need to take a dive.
not that you need to, but that it actually might be the reason that is prescribed here, that they're prescribing a neder, a vow, for those who do not believe, who are having trouble believing, in order for them to be able to make a tikkun, a fix in their faith. Because once one goes and takes on a vow of asceticism, of restricting themselves from all of the pleasures of life, perhaps they can reunite with their sense of faith, or at least understand the wisdom that the sages have found. This is one read, this is one possible read of why one would possibly want to go and become a Nazir. And I wanted to start here, and then I'll come to you, Sandra. I see you have a thought. I wanted to start here because I want us to be audacious in the way that we think about why one might possibly want to take on the identity, the status of being a Nazir, because it might not be what we think that it is. Sandra.
So I just want to point out this distinction and pointing it out, ask the question. So Rabbi Nachman is talking about a lack of faith in the wisdom of the sages.
Right, Rabbi Nachman is talking about a lack of faith in the wisdom of the sages, correct?
I think of asceticism as putting aside worldly pleasures in order to get closer to God, and this has to do with sages.
Right.
Faith in the wisdom of the sages, which perhaps maybe what he means by that is the wisdom of the sages is God or whatever. I don't know.
Right. So it is a very good question, which is if there is a wisdom that's rooted in the sages, and then you've got this idea of a neder that is to lehazir ladonai, right? You're supposed to take on a vow that's supposed to separate you for the sake of Adonai. And so this person is doubting the wisdom of the sages, but you're becoming a Nazir for Adonai. And so where's the marriage of these two things? One possibility is that Rabbi Nachman thinks that they're one and the same and doesn't distinguish between the two things. Another possibility is that the idea here is a reunification of action and belief. Okay, so what we're talking about is I'm going through the motions, but I don't necessarily believe in them, which is an utterly relatable idea, I think, for anyone who has participated in ritual Jewish life. I think anyone and everyone who has participated at some point in ritual Jewish life has encountered the idea that you can be going through the motions of Jewish life and feel disconnected from the wisdom of the sages, so to speak. Like, why would they have fixed this practice? I don't necessarily understand this, and that this might be
a tikkun to that. I think that's possibility as well. I see Brand has an idea.
The thing I like about this is it's a recognition that not everybody's the same.
Do you think it's a recognition that not everybody is the
There
same?
are
Okay.
people who have
Okay.
difficulties with faith. This is in a biblical context. I'm saying is that we know that today that this isn't for everybody. But maybe back then, this is too young to recognize there are some people whose faith is hard to come by. And you can take this vow and you can delve more into it, and maybe that will help you. But it's a recognition that we are not all the same.
That's
It's a
actually, that's wonderful.
recognition of the differences between us, and that this Nachman understands that we have to care for and we have to recognize that somebody's different and we can treat it in this way.
Great, Brant. I like that read of it a lot. This idea that there might be people for whom the only way to really reground yourself when you're feeling a little floundering or lost in faith is to actually go a little harder in your own personal practice, to take on a time-bound, limited length of time where asceticism is your practice, so that you can get back into it, so that you can believe again, so that you feel you're in it again. And that's not for everyone. Not everybody needs it, not everybody wants it, but it's an option. And it's an acknowledgement that not everybody is going to take it on, but it's there. I want us to move on to the next section. Hold on to your additional thoughts. It's not to cut you off, but it's to make sure that we get through all of our sources. We're going to continue to explore the ideas of this asceticism that comes out of the notion of the Nazir. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that deprivation and less about the details of what a Nazir actually does or doesn't do, and more about what actually is this asceticism. And this wisdom comes from Dr. Erica Brown. I am very, very lucky because Dr. Erica Brown was just coming into Washington, D.C. when I was an undergraduate, and I got to have her as a professor individually. She's now a very well-known Talmud scholar and a teacher of teachers in Washington, D.C. area. She's the scholar in residence perpetually at, I don't remember what her chair is, but she has a chair at the DC Federation, and she is a remarkable teacher. She has podcasts and books, and I recommend her highly. She wrote a book called Leadership in the Wilderness. It's not just about Bamidbar, but she has some wonderful teachings on Bamidbar, and we're going to look at two of her teachings. One is about the Nazir and the taking on of asceticism, and the next one we're going to read is about what happens when the Nazir leaves that status and why. Okay, so I'm going to read this out loud because I have the microphone and I want everybody to hear. So I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to ask you a question. The question that I'm going to ask of you is, what, in this particular case, is the difference between a Nazir, like the status of a Nazir, based on the description that we're reading here, and what we talk about today as deprivation or depriving ourselves for self-righteous or righteous reasons? What is the way that Dr. Brown is describing the notion of Nazir as a form of self-deprivation, and the way that we in 5783 in 2023 think of and talk about self-deprivation? Okay, so I'm going to read her description. Jewish asceticism, unlike many other forms of asceticism, does not seek to separate mind or soul from body, focusing instead on the mind itself without the trappings of physical pain or deprivation. The Talmud specifically questioned why a Nazirite did not abstain from food instead of wine, and answered that not having food would weaken him. The goal of abstention is not to weaken the body's constitution, but to free the mind from distraction or distortion, such as would be caused by alcohol consumption. In the words of the 16th century Italian exegete, meaning the commentator who we know, Rabbi Avadia Sforno, the Nazir consecrated himself to God to, quote, engage in God's Torah, follow God's ways, and cling to God.
The idea is neither to punish nor to weaken the body, but rather to enhance one's capacity for transcendence. What is the difference between the way that we talk about deprivation today and the way that this is describing self-deprivation for self-righteous or self-beneficial reasons?
Like a diet?
Any form of depriving oneself, any form of holding back for personally beneficial or self-righteous reasons. Alan, since I haven't heard from you yet.
Seems to be more for a sense of greater clarity of the mind and not to deal with depriving the body of anything, but depriving oneself of the pleasures in life. And since that not drinking alcohol is viewed with a Nazir, it's not a sense, well, I'm depriving myself of alcohol. It's to ensure that my mind can be as clear as possible.
So it's not necessarily deprivation for the sake of deprivation, it's deprivation for the sake of clarity. So whatever it will take for the sake of clarity, except that it's very specifically prescribed, right? It's not just whatever might take me personally or you, Alan, personally to get to clarity. It's specifically prescribed. However, it seems that the purpose is for clarity. I saw Bob's hand, and then I'll come over here.
I was gonna say, it might be about intensifying the experience, the haspalah, or that's the word, the wonder of it all.
Oh, the hafla'ah, yes. The wondrousness, yes, very
It's
good.
not about depriving, it's about intensifying.
So it's not about deprivation actually at all in your estimation. Even though there is deprivation to get there, it's not really about the deprivation itself whatsoever. It's about the wondrousness that one can experience through deprivation. Bob, how does one experience wondrousness through deprivation?
No, it's not the deprivation, it's just intensifying the experience. Intensifying the experience of Torah and being close to God.
How is one going about doing that?
By taking out the debris, by removing the debris,
By removing the detritus, by removing the debris, by removing the extra stuff. So it's not deprivation at all. I love this. It's like, no, don't even think of it as deprivation. What we're saying to you is get rid of distraction, get rid of the other stuff. We're not saying it's deprivation at all. It's actually, you don't even realize this. It's not deprivation. It's get rid of this other stuff, because when you do, get ready, it's going to be amazing. The clarity, what you'll experience and what you'll have. I love that. That's really wonderful. Thank you for going down that path with me. Gary, yeah.
Couple points. One, I think that it's like fasting for your own people. You get a closeness to God. And I think the Nazareth point is not to feel good, but to get closer to God. And that was their option. And also, I think that it's almost like Lent. Lent. You're giving up something, whatever it is, and it's supposed to be something that's important to you for this 2-month period, whatever the month period is for Lent. You're able to, you want to give something that is important to you, and as a reminder of your closeness to God.
So on the one hand, so I've heard two things. So one is, it really is about closeness to God ultimately. It's not just about the wondrousness that you can achieve or the clarity that you can achieve. It is about this neder that separates you from other things such that it brings you closer to God. And two is that you're right, that there are emulations of this in other parallel traditions, that Christians do emulate this through Lent in many ways, through a sort of there's a lot more autonomy in it. There's a self-led process of depriving oneself, or of, we're not going to say deprivation, clearing the debris of something distracting, right? I'm not going to eat cookies or whatever it is for that period of time, but I'm clearing those things away because I want to get closer to God during that time. Good. Alan, I'll give you a double point, and then we're going to move to the other text.
Just a question, you're talking about not drinking wine, there's also a prohibition on cutting one's hair, letting one's hair grow. That I don't see clearly how that would help one become more focused.
Great. That's a wonderful question. So Alan asked the question, how is it, differently than wine might do, how is it that not cutting one's hair might possibly lead that person to a place of more clarity or the wondrousness or deprivation? I want to say
that where we're going to land, the very final source that we're going to read tonight, is going to take us to a place of saying the hair has such an extraordinarily profound point, a ritual beginning and a ritual end, that you're going to be wowed by her take on it. So I'm not even going to answer it because I want Dr. Alana Kirshan, I want her to answer for us, okay?
At least it shows I didn't read ahead.
I can tell, you definitely didn't read ahead. Alana Kirshan is going to answer that for us. Did you want to offer something?
Without reading ahead, and I don't want to spoil it, and I did not read ahead. But it seems to me that like hair is represented by vanity, and vanity is so outward facing, and if what we're trying to do is create a closeness to faith, closeness to God, that's some of the ditchery is getting out there.
Right. So Sandra says, it's hair is the ultimate symbol of vanity, and what we're doing here at this point is to try to clear the way. Right? If we're taking Bob's view of this, right, we're trying to take away this focus on self in the way that we cover mirrors during Shiva. That we take away this self-awareness, this focus on our own hair and on the need to look a particular way. That's not the route that many of our commentators take, and I bet you someone out there has said as much. I think that it actually speaks to me more as a modern, right? Your explanation, Sandra, speaks to me more in 2023. And I wonder, but I don't know for certain because I'm not a historian of this period as much as I'm a reader of the secret literature, if in fact longer hair would have been a sign of more or less vanity. And so part of me just doesn't know what it would have meant to grow the hair any longer. So I have questions about that, but you're going to see that we're about to talk about hair a lot. So let's look at the next source. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read this for you because it's such a great long exploration about hair. Here we go. So this is about the end of Nazardom, the end of being a Nazir, and the end of the ritual. Here we go. This is also Dr. Erica Brown on the Nazir. The most curious aspect of the sacrifice is not how one explains its purpose, but how one explains its details. The traditional sacrificial elements are present: 2 lambs and a ram, unleavened cakes of choice flour, and unleavened wafers and oil, all of which are presented to the priest. However, in an often neglected detail, the Nazirite then himself contributes to the presentation of the offering. The Nazirite shall then shave his consecrated hair at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and take the locks of his consecrated hair and put them on the fire that is under the sacrifice of well-being. It is often overlooked, by the way. She continues, an integral part of transitioning the Nazirite back to ordinary life was not only the cutting of his hair, but also the offering of his hair on the altar as part of the sacrifice itself. He had to watch his own hair, the most prominent aspect of his ascetic commitment, go up in heavenly smoke, creating the mental readiness to rejoin the world of distraction and mental static. Watching his hair burn created total recognition that his break from the often banal world of human engagement was over. Similarly, God commanded Yechezkel to take a razor and cut the hair on his head and beard, and then divide the hair into sections to mimic the takeover of Yerushalayim, which was to be segmented after a conquest. Take also a few hairs from there and tie them up in your skirts, and take some more of them and cast them into the fire. From this the fire shall go out upon the whole house of Israel. Like the Nazirite, the prophet must burn his own hair to place himself in the drama of the moment. He set fire to part of himself. Burning hair creates an unpleasant stench. In the Talmudic tractate Shabbat, in a discussion of material that can serve as wicks for Shabbat lights, the use of hair is prohibited because it does not burn, it scorches. Thus, in sight and smell, the hair offering must have given the Nazirite pause. As a ritualist, I love this so much. Before I say anything or ask any more,
Any first reactions to this?
What's interesting to me is that in a world of biblical existence, where they don't have a television, they don't have an iPhone, there's sure a lot of attention paid to distractions in life.
So Brant points out that even though today we say, look at all the distractions in our world, and we name all of these contemporary problems of modernity, of phones and devices and all that, even with none of that,
A world of distraction and mental static.
right, a world of distraction and mental static way before this existed. There's nothing new about distraction.
Right.
Or should we be burning our should we be burning our you know, what's the equivalent in you know, we like create a list of contacts or something, then we burn it at the end.
Recognition of sometimes the physical is necessary to accomplish the mental. And so I accept that ritual has a place to play, just like, you know, we carry around the Torahs and we do certain things, and this burning ritual and the stench and all that, it's symbolic of the break, I get it. And what I'm saying is that all throughout religion, particularly the Jewish religion, we have various physical manifestations in order to help us understand what we're doing, custom stuff. So this isn't really that much different, although, you know, one of the things I always have to ask about these things is, does this really ever take place? I don't know.
Right, so you said three really important things. One is, it really is remarkable that long ago, the same conversation was taking place. It really is nothing new. There have always been distractions. Human beings will always be distracted from the spiritual highs by mundane and banal things all around us. Number two is, there's something about attacking the spiritual distress in our lives through physically manifest rituals. And that is why my work as in creating and doing rituals is so continues to compel me over and over again to create and recreate ritual, because I think that it's very hard to deal with spiritual distress, or to kind of get through and cut through that static, to cut through that noise without actually manifesting it. And three is, I agree, it's very hard to know how much of this actually ever took place, but the notion of it, even as a fairy tale, is powerful. And that's why we're studying it in its setting. But it is a good question, how much of it ever really did. I saw Sandra's hand, and then I want us to get to this folk tale that's here. It's Jews anyway. Yeah. The joke was the two lawyers can't stop talking, but we're all a bunch of Jews, so we're just talking.
Two Jews, three opinions.
That's right.
Two Jews, three views.
Yeah.
I found the concept, the visceralness of burning the hair to be very, like, that in and of itself made me pause and wonder, right? Like, it was like, I can picture shaving the hair off and burning it. Like, that's very powerful. We're all very attached to our hair. Like, there are lots of rituals.
It is growing out of our head. Yes, we were all very attached to our hair because it is growing out of our head. But you're right, there is a really visceral nature.
Cover their hair, we put a kippah on, like, it's part of our identity, it's part of our identity.
Right.
But it's also part of our ritual. And to shave it off after growing it, especially my sister-in-law just got out about you, and she did not cut her hair for the whole year. Suddenly her hair was that big hair was down to here, and that first cut, or the cutting of a boy's hair at 3, which is in the concept. There's something very powerful about that, and the concept, and I don't know if I'm thinking it's spiritual, but that concept of shaving it all off after a whole year and putting it there and burning it, it's like, it's literally taking a piece of yourself and letting it go.
Yeah, I think that you're right that there is this profound nature to the shift that happens in a person that is so amazingly counter to this idea that we would name it as vanity, to focus so much on hair. And yet, when somebody goes from having super long hair because of something like avelut, and then all of a sudden cuts it, or somebody who we've known to have simply shoulder length hair, but they have to cut it because they're about to go through a cancer treatment, or a young boy who's never had his hair cut before and is suddenly cut, or a young girl for that matter, and the first haircut, all of a sudden it changes. On the one hand, it's just hair. And on the other hand, it is quite literally attached to us. And there is a reason why it's not only visceral because it's coming off of our head, but also I'm really moved by the potency of this idea that when you burn hair, it smells different. There's something about it. It is a different kind of offering. It changes the offering that's being brought forward. And I want us to finish with Alana Kershan's take on this, because she gives us the takeaway. She's going to give us the takeaway from this that gives us the modern, the modern hap, the modern walk away with a something to hold in your hand about this. And Alana wrote If All the Seas Were Ink. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I will get a copy of it to you if you haven't read it yet. It is a book about her experience as a Talmud scholar and also as a mom going through divorce. Alana lived in Jerusalem at the same time that I did. As she studied Talmud, every time she finished a perek, she would summarize it with a limerick, and then she would teach that limerick. And it was a way of us learning it all together as a community at Kedem, Zichrono Livracha. It was a great community in Jerusalem. We used to daven together on Emek Raphaim. And she has such a gift for teaching about Talmud and about rabbinic sources on our sacred texts. And she brings together sort of very often classic American literature together with our rabbinic teachings, and she does exactly that here. So here is her final teaching. But another useful intertext, albeit one that came much later, is the famous O. Henry story, The Gift of the Magi, in which the heroine also examines her reflection and is struck by her hair. Suddenly she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Rapidly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. Della sells her hair so that she might have enough money to purchase a Christmas present for her beloved husband, Jim. She buys him a fob for his watch, unaware that he has sold his watch to buy her combs for her rippling, shining hair. By the end of the story, it is clear that Della and Jim have given each other the most meaningful gifts of all, because their gifts symbolize the sacrifices they are prepared to make for one another. Perhaps we should not be surprised then that the Nazir is commanded to grow long hair and then offer it in sacrifice to God. In the Torah's synecdoche, the hair of the Nazir substitutes for the entire person. And thus the Nazir sacrifices his or her hair as a way of symbolically sacrificing himself or herself. Hair is a renewable part of our body. When we give it up, we are not endangering ourselves, but rather enacting the gesture of sacrificing something we value deeply for the sake of another ideal. We might shave our hair to burn on the altar or sell it to buy a present for a spouse, but we might also donate our hair to organizations that make wigs for cancer patients, thereby allowing someone else to feel beautiful again. The Nazir challenges us to think about other creative ways we can give of ourselves and how, in so doing, we might find ourselves transformed.
Box of love. That's what it's called.
So what Ilana says is the only purpose in growing one's hair long is to give it away. My message to you from this teaching is that the asceticism that's set forward in Judaism through the example of the Nazir, the thing that is so wondrous here is the notion that we would go about figuring out what it is that we can completely give of ourselves and give up of ourselves, that neither robs ourselves of our humanity, but also allows for us to say, I am only doing this exclusively for the sake of going through the process of spiritual renewal. not for personal gain, not because I'm on some other kind of a journey, not because I've been pressured to do so, not because this is what my community is doing, because I am on this journey and my intention is that at the end of this process, I am able to give this over and to give this up. The hair is one great example, but as Brant reminded us, we are all different and we all have different ways of doing this and of giving this. And it's a path that we can go on in a way that we can emulate this teaching of the Nazir. And if you have any other takeaway from this, it's please read more Alana Gershan. She's a really good writer and teacher. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. What we're going to do is we're going to bench, then we'll say a Kaddish Rabbanan, and then we'll do Mariv. Who had bread?
I did.
Joey always has bread. Anyone else who wants to lead the thing? Okay, Joey, a quick Shir Hamalot and then a Zimun, and then we'll go quiet.
Great.
Okay, great. You can just do it loudly from there. It's fine because people hear it. Okay, good.
Shir Hamalot b'shuva Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu
Cholim hazir malei secha finu
Ushayinu Rina Ademiru Bagoim Igil Adonai La Sotimele Igil Adonai La Sotimanu Hainu Semeshim Shuva Adonai et Shuvitenu Ka'afikim Ba'negev Adorim Bedima Berinai Toru Halachilech Uvacho No say Meshech Hazara Oh, Yabo Verina, no say Alumotav. Copyright of RF. Edisha Varanam Rockman Tabelam. Issue copyright of Rethalinisha Halani Shalom. Baruch Halinisha Halani Shalom Tubo. Kainu Baruch Shemo. Baruch Adonai. Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Hazan Olam Kulo B'Tubo. Bechein B'Chesed Rachamim. Bunotein lechem chol basar ki le'olam chasdo u'tuvo hadayol tamid lo chasar lanu ve'etzar lanu ma'azon le'olam ba'et ba'hur shemo hadayol ki weltan parnes la'kol u'mitiv la'kol u'mitim ma'azon le'kol beriotav asher bara baruch atah Adonai azan et ha'kol v'otam.
keeps following.
This book drives me crazy, particularly. You announce the pages because the comments in the book. You know, I have to tell you.
Okay, we turn to Kaddish Rabbanan. We're on page 111.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. Ve'oma divra kirute ve'amlich malchute. Ve'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbarar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. All Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Talmidehon ve'al kol Talmidehon ve'al kol man de'oskin be'oraita di ve'atra hadin v'di b'chol atar ve'atar yehe lehon u'lehon shlama rabba china ve'chista v'rachamin ve'chayin arichin u'mizona bevicha u'ferkana min kadam u'lehon di shmaya v'imru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Tovim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imamav U'Barachamav Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen.
Amen. We begin weekday Mariv on page 264 in the Lev Shalem. If you're in the other Sidurim, we're on 281 or page 200. If you're in the weekday Sim Shalom, we're on 137. After the Baruch Hu, you can be seated.
והוא ההוא מחבר עוון ולא ישחית, והוא בעל השיבה פה ולא יקל חמתו, אדוני השם מלך יעננו ויום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך העולם אשר El chai v'kayam tamidim lochar lenu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai amari v'avim. Avat olam b'Yisrael. ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. Adonai Elohechem emet. Umalchut Tovatzon Kiblu Alehem Moshe v'Neselachanu Shira B'Simcha Rabba V'Buchulam Micham Ocha Ba'alim Adonai Micham Ocha Nedar B'Kodesh Norati Lot Osef Elev Malchutecha uvanecha b'kayam lifnei Moshe ze'eli anu ve'amuhu Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed V'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov galom yad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael Hashkivein v'na'lenu shalom abidenu k'en Ushvortzeitzenu v'venu lechim l'shalom et aviad olam Baruch atah Adonai shomem Yisrael Baruch le'olam amen ve'amen. כי המלכות שלך היא ולמעטים לא בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המלך בפרדותם ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו. יתגדל ויגדש ברבה, ועמד דבר כי ותרב לכמחותי בחייכון ובימיכון וחיי דרכו בישראל, וגלה בזמן קריב עמו אמן. יש ברבך לעולם Maya, Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitbar, Vidma, Vitnase, Vitadar, Vidala, Vidala, Shemedikudisha, Vihu, Le'el, Amin, Gobechata, Vishirata, Tushprata, Venechamata, Devan, Be'oma, Vimu, Amen.
The weekday Amidah is said in a quiet whisper. Don't forget to insert the special paragraph for Haftalah at the end of Shabbat, and in this case Yom Tov as well, which is found on page 272 in Lev Shalem, 287 in the Newer Sim Shalom, and 212 in the full. If you haven't yet completed your own private Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 279 in Lev Shalom.
יתקדע ויקדש ברבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי והמליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון רחדך בישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב עמו אמן. יש ברבה ברך לעולם ולמלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר וידמה ויתנשא ויתהדר וידלה וידלה שמר קדושה ברכו לאלה מן כה ברכתה ושירתה תושבתה ונחמתה דרון בעלמא vimu amen.
Be seated. We're on page 279 or 292 or 684.
V'hino Adonai Eloheinu aleinu masayidenu konana aleinu masayidenu konanehu yoshe b'seto yobetzel shadai lonan. Orchim aspeo bishuati, orchim aspeo vare bishuati.
We're in Lev Shalom. We turn back to page 216 to the second paragraph on the page. All of their Sidurim, we continue to the next page.
ואתה קדוש יושבתי לו ישראל וקרזל זה והבהר קדוש 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 הנצרות מלוך הארץ כבודו ותישא עיני רוח ושמע אחרי קורש גדול ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Titen emel Yaakov chesed l'Avraham asher nishbat al udenu mekedem. ויבטחו בך ידי שמך כי לא עזבת דרשך אדוני אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.
Page 280 in Lev Shalom.
יתקדע ויקדש ברבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי והמליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון רחדך בישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב עמו אמן. יש ברבה ברך לעולם ולמלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר וידמה ויתנשא ויתהדר וידלה וידלה שמר קדושה ברכו לאלה מן כה ברכתה ושירתה תושבתה ונחמתה דרון בעלמא ועמו אמן. תתקבל צלותון ברכון דכו ישראל קדם ונשמע ועמו אמן. יהי שלום רב מן שמעיה וחיים עלינו אל כל ישראל ועמו אמן. עושה שלום עממה והוא יעשה שלום עלינו אל כל ישראל ועמו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קירותי והמליך מלכותי בחייכון וימיכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Yasher Koach, Alan, for leading us in Mariv. You can hit the lights. Yay, nay, 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 nay. Ya nay, 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 ya nay, 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 ay, nay, 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 ay, nay, nay, ya nay, 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 ay, nay, nay, ya nay, 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 oh, ya nay, nay, ya nay, nay, ya nay, nay, ya nay, 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 hine el Yeshuati, etach v'lo echad, ki uzi v'zim Adonai Tzevaot Imanu Miskavlanu Elohei Yaakov Selah Adonai Tzevaot Asher Yadam Motei Hapach Adonai Hoshia Hamelech Yaneinu V'Yom Koreinu LaYehudim HaTorah V'Simcha V'Sason Mikar Kein Tiyeh Lanu Chas Yeshua Tesa U'V'Shem Adonai Ekra Yain Anai Yanai Nai Nai Yain Anai Yanai Nai 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 Savri Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei ha'eish. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamagdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech b'Yisrael amim ben yom hashvihi v'sheshet yemei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamagdil ben kodesh lechol. Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, hatutinu yichol, zareinu v'chasreinu yarvei yarvekacha, v'hakochavim v'layla. Zareinu v'chasreinu yarvei yarvekacha, v'hakochavim v'layla. Shavua tov, 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 shavua tov. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishvi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu agiladi. Imira ve'aminu, Yahavo Eilinu, Mashiach ben David,
Mashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, Gitzavach, everybody. If you're coming for Daily Minyan this week, and I hope you do, tomorrow morning is at 8 a.m. Monday morning is also at 8 a.m. because of the federal holiday. Hope everybody has a meaningful holiday weekend. See you soon.
Over there anyway? Grape juice, anyone? Okay.
What's that? Ah. Oh yeah, I would love for you to go back to that.
I wanted to talk about it. This happened recently to me. My daughter and the son.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock on a
For 3
Saturday.
years didn't cut the hair.
Gross.
Recently cut his hair. And he completely changed the personality. I don't know what. The hair was here. I don't know why. The lady that cut the hair, all of the hair, said we can't donate it. He wanted to, I mean, my daughter wanted to donate it. It was that high.
And they said no?
They didn't say.
All right.
Just
Off of here.
I don't know. They gave it to her, but it was very long. And
it really changed him, huh?
it changed the personality. It became something else. It was a baby before that, and then it changed. It became a boy.
Little boy, yeah.
A little boy.
It's
and
really,
was-
it is amazing. I had the same feeling when
Really?
Yossi was, he's curly hair, so it wasn't long, it was big.
Oh,
You know, it was so
your
curly on my
son?
side, it was curly,
Oh, for 3
so it was
years.
big for 3 years.
Wow.
And then we
Oh,
cut
when
it
you cut
really
it
kind of short.
short?
It's still very curly, but he cut it short,
Oh,
and it changed him so much.
completely changed.
Yeah,
I
very
can't
different.
believe it. When he came from the cutting the hair,
Yeah, it's like,
they bring him, and I said, "Oh my God, he is like a maid. He orders everybody to do this." Now the other son is 9, 10 months, and they start. I don't know why the reason. I thought it hurt their feeling when it's very high, and they every day they have to put it in there,
the bun,
the bun, and I said, cut it, and said, no, we want to 3 years. What is the reason that they do?